Hello, besties. Welcome to my channel. Or if you're a lucky one, welcome back to my channel. Without wasting any of your time, let's get straight to the video. Today's case takes place in a small village called Karmal in Gujarat's Dung district. I hope I'm pronouncing these names right because I couldn't confirm their pronunciations anywhere. Dung literally means a hilly village. Karmal was the perfect example of this. With its beautiful waterfalls and landscape, the village was a tight knit community as well, with its rich customs and traditions. Everything was going good with their harvests, their lands, their rivers. It was pretty sacred to them. So basically, everything was going pretty good. Most of the villagers were farmers by profession, but there was one problem that was lingering in everybody's head. The villagers knew that there was something off about their environment of late. There is some disruption, some imbalance in nature, and they felt it. They couldn't put a finger on what exactly was amiss, but there was one thing that the villagers were sure of was there would be consequences for this imbalance. They couldn't predict why, when, what, but they knew that it's coming for them. It's like an intuition. The one thing Indians go by is intuition. They don't believe in science, nor do they believe in technology, neither did they believe in proof. They believe in prophecies. And finally, the day arrived where they had to face the inevitable event that they had been feeling in their guts. A little boy, let's call him Vicky. He's any other ordinary boy from this village. He is in perfect health. Best health that he's ever been in. Now you can imagine the shock of his parents when they see him barely able to move with high fever. His parents, obviously concerned, tried to bring him back to good health. Nothing was working. It was strange. It felt like they were fighting divine power. And like I said, this is a very tight knit community. Word goes around. There's always some whispers, then they become theories, then they become facts, and you can't do nothing about it. As once said by a wise woman, everybody has a big mouth in a small town. I am that wise woman. I just made that up. How can I not? It's so fitting. Everybody in this village was thinking the same specific thing, including the parents, but they didn't just want to say it out loud. This is it. This was their punishment for what had happened 5 years ago. They knew that the wrath of the gods was just not limited to the little boy. It was going to affect everyone, and this was just the beginning. It's 2017 in our current timeline of events, so let's go back 5 years ago to 2012 to understand what exactly happened that made these villagers so terrified of the consequences. A temple is obviously a very sacred place for people who practice Hinduism. There is a set of strict rules that you have to follow in order to pay your respect to the god. What happens when you violate the sanctity of a holy place like the temple by committing a sin? A sin that is motivated by greed and selfishness? What happens when you decide that you are above the rules set for mere mortals? What happens when an idol from the temple is stolen? The villagers took the stealing of the idol from their village temple very seriously. They didn't want to upset the gods. Now they felt like they were dealing with the repercussions of the idol being stolen 5 years ago. They couldn't find the culprit, but now they must. And the problem just seemed to be only getting bigger. Now it was not just the little boy who was affected by this outbreak of viral fever, it was spreading all across the village like wildfire. Now was the perfect time to find the culprit of the stolen idol, deliver justice to appease the gods, so this outbreak might finally stop. And the one big hurdle in front of them was, how do we find this culprit? Because they have to make it right in their minds. They have to find the culprit, deliver justice, retrieve the idol if they could, and restore the peace and balance in their village, and bring their village under the protection of this goddess again. So what did they do? How did they solve this problem, you might ask? They put their tiny little heads together, each with at least two working brain cells, and got straight to work. Whispers and rumors guided their investigation, so they're all investigating, and it's a very serious investigation, mind you. A short disclaimer: I do not want to undermine the gravity of the situation or certain intense sentiments that are attached, and I do understand and deeply respect the sentiments of religious people. I am not trying to make fun of the religion or the people who might have intense sentiments attached to something like this. I am only making fun of the sheer stupidity of certain people and the way they go about things. I hope we've not misunderstood each other. Moving on, so they're investigating. It's a very serious investigation, and they're trying to figure out who is responsible for this mess. Their amateur little investigation came to the conclusion that this is not the result of a single person. A single person cannot do something like this. They think it is done by a group of witches. Gather around, folks. The misogyny has evolved back to its golden ages. We're accusing women of being witches again. And this was a very sensitive time period for the villagers because everybody was on edge. Your every move was being minutely observed, scrutinized, and reduced like a math question. One wrong move, and you're under the radar of these suspicious people. Now you're the witch. I wonder what it must have felt like to live during this time period. Like, what were the do's and don'ts? And after all this, they found the perfect person to put this all on. They were convinced that this is the person that has been causing mayhem in this village. They genuinely believed that they had found the one that they had been looking for. Her name was Annabelle Power. And again, I'm so sorry if I mispronounce these names. I'm not familiar with it and I'm trying. And I couldn't find any confirmation on how to pronounce this name. And now you must be thinking, what was the reasoning for their accusation? So this is a big accusation. They must have had pretty big reasoning, right? A valid reasoning, a solid enough proof where it was definite. There was no way that she's not the witch. Something concrete. That's what anyone would expect. That's what I was expecting. It was nothing. They didn't have anything concrete. They didn't have anything solid. They were just like, you were suspicious enough for us. I think suspicion was also traveled through word of mouth. Like, she seems suspicious. She seems weird. I don't like the way she's doing this thing, so she must be a witch. That was basically the reasoning. As to what exactly was the reason, there is some alleged information on the internet that some people believe, and I think I believe as well, was the reason why they chose her. We'll get into that in the later part of the episode. So in the last week of September 2017, it was a Friday night. All of these people with their accusatory fingers, they reached Annabelle's house in the middle of the night. Annabelle lived with her husband. She was born and raised in this very same village. She has lived in this village her entire life, grown alongside these people that were now accusing her of something so serious. Annabelle is a deeply religious woman. When they accused her of something like this, she was obviously offended by it, but they didn't even give her any chance to react or to defend herself. She's just incessantly denying these accusations. She's even asking them so many questions because she's just so confused. I'm no detective, okay? I'm not claiming to be one, but I have consumed my fair share of true crime content. I watched a few interrogation clips here and there. One consistent thing that non-guilty people always do is they're defensive, ask counter questions, mad as hell because they cannot believe this. Annabelle was doing all three of these things, so I have to believe her. Here's a little interrogation lesson for you. You know what guilty people do? Guilty people comply. They're very diligent. They try to answer as many questions. They're always trying to make you believe what they're saying. They're so anxious. They want the other person to believe them. We know that if you're gonna get defensive, ask them questions yourself, then they might not be so inclined to believe you. Their goal is to make you believe them. Now back to the story. But the villagers were having none of that. It was a big group of people that had gone to her house that night. So there was clearly a power imbalance. Literally, strength wise, she couldn't have done much to protest and protect herself. There were also many rich and powerful people from this village that were involved in this whole operation, whereas Annabelle and her family were relatively poor. They had already decided that she was the culprit with no evidence whatsoever, and nothing that she said at this point would sway them from their decision. She was the woman they wanted. I think to appease her in some way, they performed a rudimentary test to prove that she was a witch. What was the validity of this test? Was this test written in any scriptures? Was it even legit? They were like, don't know and don't care. After this test came out positive, Annabelle couldn't even protest. It was a done deal. Additionally, 4 other people were also abducted from their homes that night and accused of being witches. I'm just gonna call this for what it is. It was kidnapping. They were forced out of their homes without their consent, dragged out of their homes, and made to be a part of this. They didn't want to be a part of any of this. They did not accept their accusations, did not surrender, they did not confess, they did not give in. There was nothing, there was no evidence. It was just word of mouth and a gut feeling. That is it. The other 4 people that were involved and accused in this case were Paruben Power, her husband, Janabhai Power, Rajubhai Bhisara, his wife, Nachiben Bhisara. You can completely come at me for butchering their names. I don't know how to pronounce these names. I'm not familiar with them. I'm sorry. From the surnames, what I understand, this is just my common sense, is I think Annabelle, her husband, Paruben Power, her husband, were somehow maybe related. I couldn't find any confirmation of it online, or if they were even related to the Bisara couple. But I think they're all related, is what I think. Side note, even though witchcraft rituals were common in this village, it has happened in the past where people have accused people of being witches, and then these rituals would happen. Historically, it's been women who were accused of being witches. This was the first instance where two men, along with three women, were also accused of being witches. I just thought it was interesting. Maybe it's not all about witches and dark magic in this village. That's not the only thing they factored in. Maybe this was something personal. They had planned the night for Annabeth and the accused. They were determined to see this to the end. This all seemed very heavily premeditated to me because earlier in the day they were all contributing money to buy alcohol for the ritual. Not because alcohol was needed to perform this ritual, but only because they wanted to have something to drink while they saw this performance. I guess accusing people of being witches is very entertaining. Not just this, they had a meeting before this big night where they met and decided who the accused are and what should be done to them. In this same meeting, they also decided that they want to hire an exorcist from a neighboring village to perform this ritual. His name was Vanubhai Bhagat. They all again contributed money to hire this exorcist. They were obviously more prominent people that were heading this investigation, and everybody knew what was going to happen to the victims except the five people that were accused. The five people were dragged from their homes that night and they were brought to the village temple. Imagine their surprise when they saw half of the village gathered around like it's a festival. And the ritual began. A firewood was lit in the middle, rice was sprinkled as they began the ritual. We only know what happens to Annabeth because of the documentary, but it seems like whatever happened to Annabeth happened to the rest as well. Annabeth was dragged to this spot in front of the firewood closer to the exorcist, and the exorcist began with beating her with a burning log. He started with targeting the legs to make her fall down to also stop her from running away. Her husband, watching all this, tried to intervene and stop them. In turn, they just beat the husband. Vanubhai, the exorcist, he ordered these two men to put two wooden pillars on the ground, like stabilize them, and tie Annabeth to the wooden pillars upside down and burn chili powder right beside her face. They were probably different degrees of torture for all the five victims that they had accused. They stripped her naked, forced her to walk on burning charcoal, branded her with a hot iron. They even threatened to strip her daughter naked. So, what was the point of all this? What was the reasoning behind all this? What were they trying to get out from them? What were they trying to get from them? Their main agenda was to make them confess. Confess that they were involved in the stealing of the idol. The exorcist kept asking her the question of the stolen idol again and again and again. Her involvement, where is the stolen idol now? What did they do with it? If she didn't answer or refuse their accusations, the torture would continue again. The physical harassment lasted for 6 hours. There were some reports that said that it had lasted for 4 days. It only ended after the death of Paruben Power, an elderly 50-year-old woman. The torture was so extreme that it had literally caused the death of a person. And it was a slow, painful death. And in her final moments, not even moments, in her final hours of her life, she was alone, humiliated, terrified of her life, and in so much pain. Those were probably the longest hours of her life where you feel and dread every second, every minute of those hours. It only stopped when the five victims just gave up and confessed to everything. That was the only way to make it stop. And the survivors of this have to live with this incident for the rest of their lives among the people that were part of this brutality. This was not just about causing physical harm or intimidation, it was a humiliation ritual to make it impossible for them to live in this village among these people again, at least with dignity. This did not happen in some secluded part of the village. It happened with so many witnesses. Literally half of the village, most of the village was in attendance. And these are the same people that Annabeth has to interact with for the rest of her life because this place is the only place that she's ever known. It's even more messed up when you think about the fact that these weren't just passerbys, these weren't just bystanders. They were actively involved in the planning. They were involved in the whole process. They believed in her being a witch. And And let me try to be the devil's advocate for a minute here. Maybe initially they thought that these five people were actually witches, and they felt like this ritual was necessary for the benefit of the village. Maybe they didn't know that the exorcist and the people that were involved in this ritual would take the physical abuse so far. But surely, when you're seeing someone in so much pain, begging for all of this to stop, wouldn't you be like, okay, maybe we've taken this too far? Maybe they have taken this too far, and this is where it needs to stop. After the ritual, the five people were just dropped at their homes as if nothing had happened. They clearly needed some medical attention, but spoiler alert, these pathetic human beings just don't care, don't even have the courtesy to at least take them to the hospital. They do end up going to the hospital eventually by themselves because they were brutally physically assaulted for no fault of theirs. At the hospital was when Paruben Power was officially pronounced dead. At the hospital, Annabelle couldn't afford some of the tests that was needed for her treatment. And at this point, Annabelle recalls that she just gave up. She did not even care what happens to her anymore because she's been through so much. She was just so broken beyond belief. Her will to live was just completely crushed. She was pushed to her limit and now she just didn't care anymore. It's like when so much has already happened and you're thinking like it can't get any worse than this, and it does, and you're just like, there's nothing I can do about it anyways. Even after all this, the villagers wouldn't just let them be. They still insisted on Annabelle and her family leaving the village. She simply asked them where could she go. Her life, her entire life savings, her home, her land, everything was in this village. She can't just pack up and leave. She can't afford that. Why is the village so hell-bent on making her leave? Was it genuine, or was there more sinister intentions at play here? Okay, hear me out. Annabelle was a single child to her parents, and upon her father's death, his land passed to Annabelle through inheritance, right? Pretty basic inheritance protocol. But there were some powerful people in the village that did not like this at all. It didn't make sense to them that a woman could inherit a land and make a living out of it. They didn't think that this was right. Allegedly, the reason that they targeted her in the first place was because they wanted that land, her land, for themselves. They didn't like the fact that a woman was able to inherit a land and actually make a living through that land that was rightfully hers. And when the village was under this mass superstitious hysteria, these men knew exactly how to weaponize superstition and religion to get what they want. They found the perfect golden opportunity to make her the scapegoat of this whole thing. This would achieve two things for them. They would effectively be able to get rid of her from the village, and that would leave her land open for anyone to claim. And since these men were pretty powerful and influential in the village, they were the first in line. They would be among the first few people to get the opportunity to claim this land. And as to why the other four were accused, I think, in my opinion, they didn't want to single her out. They probably just felt like the other four people that they accused of witchcraft were just collateral damage, because they didn't just want it to be her and specifically make it look like they were targeting just her. Following the death of Paruben, her son, Nanabhai Power, had lodged a complaint with the police naming some of the villagers. Police then arrested five accused: Vanu Power, Dinesh Budekar, Suresh Bhoye, Chhagan Jhamar, Jairam Gavit. Again, I sincerely apologize for the butchered pronunciation. And the exorcist, the clown of the circus, he was on the run at this point when the other people were getting arrested after the complaint. He was on the run. He had already booked. Of course he did. So the police complaint was launched by Paruben's son, right? He had made that complaint alongside the Sarpanch, who was a woman. Her name was Vanita Ben Chaudhary. So she, along with the deceased son, had gone to the police together to file the complaint. You know what happens? And the next thing they know, a group of 20 people are at the Sarpanch's house just beating the Sarpanch's husband. What is happening in this village? Where is law and order in this village? They be just doing anything. It's a free reign. It's just an open playing field for them. Do whatever you want. Last person standing is the winner. That's how they treat this village. The Sarpanch, Vanita Ben, she denied having knowledge or involvement in the whole thing. She said she had no idea. She did not know what was happening in her own village on such a large scale. She says she had no clue. Yeah, right. We believe you. 100%. We believe you. Side note, I just think that any big event that happens like this, the people in power always know. Now, I'm not accusing her of being a part of this. This is just my opinion, my weird 6 a.m. thoughts. But I just think that the people in power, they keep a close eye on the area, like their empire. No, I mean, not really an empire, but they treat it as such. And I think they always know, but they don't care about it enough to do anything about it unless it blows out of proportion or it leads to a crisis. That's when they start acting. That's when they start to get ahead of the situation, lodge a complaint, try to be like, look, we care, we actually do our jobs, we care about the people that we govern. To me, it just feels like a PR cleanup. There's nothing to indicate that you do your job or take it seriously or you care about the people. It's just you only are active when it threatens your position and your influence and your authority. PR is a real thing, guys. It's extremely toxic. So, everything you read on the internet about anyone, be it celebrities, politicians, even influencers, at this stage, take it with a grain of salt. Never believe anything you read on the internet because it's all PR. We are literally being fed how to look at people, react to people, think about people through their PRs. I hate it. Sorry for that little side rant on PR. PR is not central to our case. Our case takes place in a very small village. Following the incident, a team led by sub-divisional magistrate reached the village and began creating awareness against using black magic practices. He was quoted saying, "We have planned to start awareness drive in villages to educate and explain it to people that exorcists are not the solution to every problem. We have identified some NGOs in Surat who perform activities like street plays that make people aware and eradicate the beliefs in exorcists. We will soon start such activities here." End quote. It was reported that the Sarpanch would also be aiding the police in their efforts in this awareness program. Too little, too late, I would say. The Sarpanch and her husband also handed an application to the police urging them that this kind of practices should be stopped in the entire district. There was some change though, as a lot of the villagers had shifted their perspective in such practices and now claim that they will no longer participate in such future exorcisms. Two out of the four people were out on bail. They probably got bail because there's this thing where if you are in agriculture, if you work in agriculture and you are the sole breadwinner of the family, then you will be granted bail. These two people that got bail were probably farmers. They were all pretty much farmers and they probably were the sole breadwinners in their families. When I was researching for this case, I did not know that witch hunting as a practice still exists in this country in 2026. I thought this was some 16th century practice that had died with the good old days, but no, we're still dealing with this. How will we ever progress as a nation if this is the kind of shit that we're dealing in this day and age? According to National Crime Records Bureau data, over 3,000 people were killed in India between 2001 and 2022 under the pretext of witchcraft. India recorded 663 murders attributed to witch hunting, averaging roughly 95 deaths annually. Officials and activists suggest that the actual number is even higher than the official records, as many of these cases are never even registered or are simply registered as murder without noting the motive. Annabelle still keeps a box of broken bangles and ornaments that she was wearing that day that was shattered because of the assault, in hopes that the police would one day come and collect the evidence, but the police never even bothered to look at them. As of 2026, we do not have any convictions. I would like to end this video with a quote from Anna Ben. "I dream about the time I used to have dignity in my life. I also have nightmares about the time when they stole my dignity." End quote. That was it for this video. Let me know what you think in the comments. Subscribe to my channel, like this video, and I'll see you next time. Bye.